Let's spend Tuesday night together, and let's go straight over to my first guest. He is barrister and broadcaster, social commentator, political commentator, Steven Barrett. Welcome, Steven.
Hi, good evening. It's a pleasure, as always.
Listen, I was going to kick off on foreign aid. We'll get to that in 1 second. But this has only cropped up this afternoon. Quite worrying. You know, in 2021, it turned out that our bungling Ministry of Defence had somehow or other managed to breach or organise a massive data breach, which allowed the Taliban to see or to try to work out which people in Afghanistan had collaborated with the British during the war. 17,000 were put at risk by this. So all these ministers, you know, Ben Wallace, remember, in the Defence Secretary, Michael Gove, they organised this secret airlift of all these 17,000 planes full of them coming into the country without telling British citizens. And they're all very proud of this. I'd do it again, they all said. I'd do it again. It was the right thing to do. Those people's lives were put at risk. Yes, yes, yes. Well, OK, fair enough. Nobody wants to see anybody killed. But it now turns out that among these 17,000, the British authorities knew were some very, very serious criminals. 28 of them were sex offenders, they were extremists, terrorists, weapons offenders, and so on and so forth. Very, very serious criminals. They knew about this, and they flew them into Britain anyway, and they now live amongst us. So when Ben Wallace and Michael Gove and Rishi Sunak and all the gang say, we did the right thing, Boris as well, we did the right thing, not telling British people that they were sticking extremely dangerous people amongst us. Do you think it was the right thing?
No, it's obviously not the right thing. And there will always certainly be members of the Taliban in that list. And there's quite a lot of suspicion about that list. I don't even know how it got leaked. Anyway, the premise is absurd. The Taliban gets sent a list. OK, well, that's a bit David Lammy-like. But, you know, it's not the end of the world. They're not just going to murder all those people. The idea is absurd. And we also can't just keep taking sides in international conflict. If these people are opponents of the Taliban, and the Taliban have temporarily won, if you take 17,000 of them and they'll be fighting age men, then you're actually helping the Taliban because they're less likely to oppose the Taliban militarily in future. You're making their job harder. You know, if we take in the losing side in the French Civil War, we're making the winning side an awful lot stronger. This is just simply imperial meddling. And what is happening is that our elite falling for this nonsense hook, line and sinker simply because they don't give a toss about us. That's
exactly right, Stephen. That's the point. They said, oh, well, the thing is, all these 17,000, these poor Afghanis. I mean, I get the point. Their lives were put at risk by this pathetic, bungling Ministry of Defence data breach. The Taliban got to see who may have collaborated with the British during the war. So I get that point. So, yeah, oh, we've got to save their lives. It's our responsibility. Well, if you're going to stick people who have committed crimes of extreme violence, weapons-based crimes, terrorism, extremism and sex offences among us, then never mind their lives, you're putting our lives at risk. These politicians, that Wallace and the gang, oh, we did the right thing. This is a disgrace.
They knew that they weren't doing the right thing, which is why they went to the High Court and they got a super injunction to stop us knowing. They spent our money to ensure that the court said that we weren't allowed to know. And the only reason we know anything about this is because eventually the courts went, do you know what, mates, this is really not on, and refused to allow them to have an ongoing super injunction. They wanted to both do this, believing that it would make them morally superior, but to never, ever tell us. So that strikes me, Kev, as a conspiracy. I mean, that I don't understand how to put that in any other way. You conspired to do this in secret. You did it for your own political, moral beliefs. You know we don't agree with you, and you're using our money to hide it from us. I mean, now it's an absolute disgrace.
It is a disgrace, and now we're finding out exactly what it was that they were keeping secret from us. They were keeping secret from the people of this country that they were putting amongst us extremely dangerous people. People who have committed crimes of violence with guns, sex offenders, extremists, terrorists, They didn't tell us that. They thought that was okay. Just don't tell them. Let's get an injunction. Don't tell people. That is an abrogation of governmental duty on an epic scale, if you ask me. The primary job of a government is to keep its citizens safe. And here was this government, the government of our country then, putting amongst us people who put us at risk. Absolutely outrageous.
And isn't it particularly telling that that policy would be exactly the same under this Labour government? There is no policy gap between the previous Conservative government and the incoming Labour one. And they're both running the country, they both ran the country or are running the country really badly. The civil servants are incompetent. I mean, I still don't think it's entirely out of the question to suggest that the civil service did that deliberately. It seems to me that there is a cult that just wants migration in this country. And no matter how much we say, terribly sorry, we really don't want it anymore. I do think we've had enough. You know, they just don't listen to us, Kev, do they? We have been excessively polite about this, and it may well be time that our politeness ends, because this is just a joke, and they cannot use our money this way. We don't have any money. We're bust, so we don't owe the world. I don't accept a moral obligation to get involved at all. I don't expect any other nation to get involved with us, and I note that they don't. Yeah. I mean, the Trump administration has floated the idea of asylum for political Brits, which I think is very touching and sweet, but I don't think he genuinely means it. Nobody would look after us if bad things happen to us. So why are we doing this? It's madness.
It is madness. Let me know, folks, what you think about this. I mean, they already kept us in the dark about who they were letting in. We didn't even know that these 17,000 people were being airplaned in, airlifted in to the country week in, week out. For 4 years. For 4 years this happened, from 2021 until 2025. This year, in fact, up until July. They kept on doing it, and we didn't know. Now we're finding out that among the people they didn't tell us about were extremely dangerous people that put our lives at risk. Don't forget also, most of these Afghanis were given priority housing over British citizens and even other migrants waiting for houses. These people, the Afghanis, the data breach Afghanis, went right to the top of the list, and many of them were given the right to claim benefits for the rest of their lives and never have to work. This is extraordinary, folks. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Now, I want to talk about also, because I'm trying to squeeze a lot in with you tonight, Stephen, Nigel Farage has proposed reducing our, currently it's around about 12-13 billion pounds a year, our foreign aid budget to 1 billion. In the past, it's been as high as 14-15 billion. They're bringing it down. The plan is to get it down to 9 billion by 2028. I say, given the state of this country, given how much people are suffering, our people, British people, I say get rid of foreign aid altogether and spend this money on us. OK, fine, take it down to 1 billion. I say take it down to 0, but if another country has got an emergency, a humanitarian crisis, obviously we step in to help. We step in to help as and when. We do not do it by rote. You know, we've got the International Development Secretary is the only government minister who has to go before Parliament to explain why he hasn't spent enough. They literally have to reach quotas of spending. It is madness. So I'm just going to quickly, by way of illustrating the madness of foreign aid, I'm going to read through a list, just a direct list. 1. 5.2 million funding Ethiopia's Spice Girls, a pop group called Yegna. That's 1. 2, UK taxpayers are on the hook for millions of pounds to promote contraception in Pakistan. A 74.33 million being splashed out to project the sale of branded contraceptives through shops and pharmacies. And in fact, the entire bill for helping Pakistani family planning is £111 million. That's what we're sending them. 3, £114 million on inclusive green enterprises in India. 4, 9.5 million accountability and inclusion projects in the Congo. What does that even mean? 5 million on transforming feminist funding in Iraq. £500,000 on a fleet of Porsches for Albanian jails. £500,000 to pay for a women's affairs director for the military in Jordan. £264,000 studying disinformation in Ethiopia. £233,000 on mental health research in Colombia. £133,000 studying shrimp health, the health of shellfish in Bangladesh. £110,000 on a gender disinformation conference in Kenya, and £44,000 studying Thailand's alcohol policies. I remember another one off the top of my head. It was, I believe it was money. I'm not sure how much we sent, but we sent a considerable amount of money to Tanzania to give them dancing and juggling lessons. And on this madness goes. Get rid of all of this. Stop this. You know, we gave China a load of money to teach the peasants how to grow rice. I would have thought they might have known that anyway. We sent loads of money to India, which has its own space program. This is madness. This is madness. Stop it. No, Nigel Farage says, let's get it down to $1 billion. I say, let's get it down to nothing.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when your politics becomes a replacement religion. And so for the liberal elite on the left, you know, they're the Fabians. On the Conservative Party, they're the people who decided they needed to pretend to believe all of these things. Because I don't think many of them still just pretend. I'm not entirely sure they do actually genuinely believe that this is a good idea. David Cameron was famously caught on camera at a Buckingham Palace event saying, well, of course, they're all terribly corrupt. And then it was like, oh, you're on camera, Prime Minister. And we all had to pretend that he hadn't said that.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a high degree of scepticism. But this sort of performative nonsense where power has simply passed between the uniparty to two political parties effectively being identical in their policy platforms and then lying to the public about what their policy platforms are, this charade was never going to be sustainable, and it is really going to smash right into a brick wall of reality called we haven't got any money. Because I've got this little thing going on Twitter where I like to point out that we have 8 days until Rachel destroys the country.
Yeah,
okay?
there is
That's
that.
how long we have. We haven't got any money. And all of these people patting themselves on the back because they helped, you know, dance lessons in Tanzania. By the way, Tanzania is a thoroughly developing and pretty developed country with a very successful capital city. I've been there, I've done legal work there, thriving culture, and one of the most beautiful places in the world in the islands of Zanzibar. But they don't need help knowing how to dance.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the last thing that you need to teach the Tanzanians how to do. But of course it's all tosh, and it's got to smash into the brick wall of reality because it just can't go on this way. And I don't care how we get there, but somebody has to go, this is nonsense. And Nigel's being very bold and cutting it down to $1 billion. I suspect by the time we're actually facing an election, Nigel will say none.
Yeah.
Because I think none is going to be the rational position. We shouldn't give money away. We certainly shouldn't give money away to Pakistan, who we take a vast amount of refugees from. So we should just say to them, no more money until you treat your people better.
Pakistan perennially is the biggest beneficiary of our generosity. We send the most money to Pakistan, huge amounts. I think it was back in 2019, it was over £300 million. Last year, I think it was 133 million. We're sending a lot of money to Pakistan. Quite why that's at the top of the list, I don't know. But politicians, the traditional politicians, the Camerons of this world, will tell you. Well, the thing is, you know, it smooths the international wheels. It's a form of soft diplomacy. That's why we give money to India, even though it doesn't need it. That's why we give money to China, even though it doesn't need it, because it smooths the wheels of diplomacy. Well, let me tell you, that's not good enough. You people in Westminster should not be impoverishing British people just because foreign aid makes your life a bit easier. Do your job properly and don't take taxpayers' money to make it easier. That is not a good enough excuse. It's a disgrace. It really is. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about Shabana Mahmood's alleged hardline migrant crisis crackdown and how it's causing Labour to completely unravel. Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and broadcaster Steven Barrett. Steven, everybody seems to be reeling back in amazement after Shabana Mahmood's speech that brought the House of Commons down yesterday. Oh, a marvellous crackdown. Oh, she's almost like a Tory or reform or something. But I don't know. I mean, you know, it sounded good. Stella Creasy called it performative cruelty. I rather like that phrase. I think it was just performative. It was performative headline hunting. It'll get a lot of headlines. It's got a lot of headlines. There's no substance to it. It's just a lot of announcements that she's going to have to get through the Commons. I think she will struggle to do that. But even if she does get it through, you know, how, for example, when she says, oh, migrants, if they come from a war-torn country, we'll monitor their war-torn countries, and if they stop being war-torn, we'll send them home. Who's going to do that? It's not going to happen, is it? And by the way, she said, yeah, we're going to have a look at the fact that we automatically give all asylum seekers £50 a week benefit. So we've got to have a look at that. We shouldn't give it to any migrants. This is a quote. I'm not joking. We shouldn't give it to any migrants unless they need it. And so on and so forth. So, I don't think it is all that tough. You know, we will continue to be the most ludicrously generous country on the face of the earth when it comes to showering people who break into Britain illegally with generosity. We will continue to give them free accommodation, free food, free doctors, free dentists. Most of them will continue to get that 50 quid a week. They'll get free lawyers, free phones, free driving lessons, and so much more. So quite why everybody says, oh, this is a hell of a crackdown. It's a slight improvement. It's not much of a crackdown. And as I said in my monologue, the thing that worries me, Stephen, is there's no proposal about actually stopping the boats or deporting anyone. In fact, there's a proposal to open up more legal routes. I don't quite know how that helps. Well, the main omission, the main thing missing that I think we should all be concerned about is there's no proposal about how to check on these people. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of undocumented young men being let into the country year on year and year, all the time. And we know nothing about them. There are hardly any checks. Most of them chuck their documents into the English Channel. And then we just allow them in. And guess what? We're now discovering that quite a significant proportion of them seem to commit serious crimes, either charged with or convicted of that. So where was the proposal about that? When are we going to do something about checking on who we let into this country? How about if you cannot prove who you are, then you don't get into the country? How about that? That would be a good crackdown, wouldn't it?
Yep. And we could have rules and we could have a system that worked. It's funny that you say like a Tory, because the previous Tory government had the Rwanda Plan 1, which was doomed to failure and failed, but did spend a number of years distracting us, making us think that something was going to be done. And then their genius idea was to have Rwanda Plan 2, at which point I lost my temper and publicly stated that Rwanda Plan 2 would not work and was doomed to fail, for which I got a lot of not a lot of friendly looks, but it's true. The Rwanda Plan 2 didn't actually have the time to fail because there was a general election was suddenly called and a new government came in and scrapped it before it even had the time to fail. The new policy is exactly the same, except it's mildly more sinister, because not only is this another complicated plan designed to fail, it will fail. I could bore your listeners and viewers with how it will do it, but of course it'll be by the ECHR, and there's a number of other mechanisms that mean that this is simply unsustainable. One of the most hilarious things is that she's created a two-tier system of immigrants. And it's almost, I mean, I don't see how everybody isn't, there's a tier that appears to get bad treatment. Okay, yeah. There is a tier that, look, first of all, that's going to get challenged in the courts. And the courts are going to say, no, you can't treat them any differently. You have to treat them all the same. But actually, even as it's structured, I don't see how anybody's getting into that tier. Yeah. Because these will be treated as families. And as long as you have somebody in your family in education or employment, you're now getting the special treatment. And in the special treatment tier, you get Rolls-Royce service, you get faster processing, you get a single route of appeal, which we will almost certainly win. It's just going to make more people British citizens, and these safe routes are even more scandalous. They're going to have it so that communities can sponsor people from overseas to get here. So if you get enough people from one community here, they're then going to just lobby to bring more and more of their people here.
Here's what we want, Stephen. Here's what we want.
Balkanisation of Britain. I mean, that's what this is.
I hate the way, particularly Labour, but all these people who are safe legal routes. I got a better idea. No legal routes, no routes at all. We need to stop this, not come up with devices by which more and more can be let in. A lot of people saying that, Shabana Mahmood's entire background is very be kind to migrants. She went to the Greek islands to hand out food parcels to illegal migrants from the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa. She has made speeches. She called for an amnesty on all migrants while she was still a backbencher. Her background is not tough on migrants, it's the opposite. And if you look into the details of what she proposed yesterday with all this safe legal routes claptrap, also talking about setting up hubs abroad and all this kind of stuff, a lot of critics are saying, well, actually, if you look at the details of what she proposed, this is an enshrinement of our asylum seeker system and a way that will guarantee it goes on forever. Far from a crackdown, it is a method by which it will be made eternal.
Yes, and it's an amnesty for all of those migrant men here now, who she's now got a new campaign today. She's determined to be proud that she's shutting down the hotels where these migrant men live. Of course, what she'll be doing then is giving them free flats. So I really don't see that as an improvement, to be honest, Kev. That's not to my mind better. What we should do is deport these people, although they don't stop people leaving the hotels. So a lot of them just disappear into criminality.
Of course they do, yes, the untold
The only ones who
story.
actually stay, the only ones that we actually monitor are the ones who stay on benefits. And that's about 60% of them. I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's just
so
not
you agree
sustainable.
with me, Stephen, that while, a lot of Tories, Jonathan Gullis, good guy, was standing in for Ian Collins here on Talk this afternoon as I was listening to him at home, and he was raving about it. Because she's brilliant. She should be in the Tory party. Marvellous. No, Jonathan, if you don't leave the ECHR, none of this can work anyway. And if you look at the details, this isn't a crackdown. This is a continuation. It really, really is. All she's managed to do is enrage the left-wing Labour backbenchers. I don't think there'll be, dozens are up in arms. I don't think there'll be enough to stop this going through. But even if it goes through, which it probably will, I don't think it's going to make much difference at all, do you?
No, and it's not a plan. I hate it when people talk about it being a plan. A grown-up plan would be a bill that I can actually read. I was just maybe I was a bit rude to Rishi Sunak's government, but to his credit, at least they did write a bill that I could read, and then I could work out why it wouldn't work. But all she's done is written a fairy document. A load of nonsense promises in a PR piece. The first 12 pages, by the way, you don't even have to read them. So people go along and look at this document. Seriously, don't waste your time on the first 12 pages. They're all just crap. They're all just nonsense. You don't actually need them. They're not even detailed about the alleged plan.
Let's call it crap, yeah. Go on.
I don't really get in trouble, but we have to grow up. We have to deal with this problem. The Tory party got an absolute kicking at the last election because it said it was fixing problems when it wasn't. Okay, and the electorate knew that, and that's why the Tory party got so roundly drubbed. That's going to happen to the Labour Party again, and if people are calling for people like Shabana Mahmood to join the Conservative Party, then I'm not sure the Conservative Party will live past the next election, because the last thing we need is people who make false promises with absolutely zero intention of performing.
Absolutely right, and actually she'd fit quite well into the Conservative Party because they've been sort of more left-wing than the Lib Dems for years. That's why they crashed and burned. That's why no one will ever vote for them again, because they forgot what it meant to be a Conservative, the absolute idiots. The migrant crisis, Labour, no mean feat, has made it worse, but never forget the fault lies with the Tories. 14 years of Tory governments who just opened our borders, a travesty for which they will never be forgiven. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Let's go to break, and when we come back, you're going to like this story, or rather you won't. It's the story of a Turkish rapist who looks like he could set to receive compensation from the British taxpayers because while he was waiting for deportation, we put an electronic tag on him and it made him depressed. So we're going to have to pay him some money. Welcome to modern Britain. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and broadcaster Steven Barrett. Steven, this is the story of a Turkish guy. He's 48 years old now. His name is Mustafa Taskiran. Mustafa Taskiran came to this country in 1994. Presumably came a little bit before that, but he was granted indefinite leave to remain in Britain in 1994. After that, over a 10-year period, he committed 54 offences. They tried to deport him in 2009, but that failed, and so he managed to stay. He was in 2014, after we failed to deport him, he was sentenced to 7 years for rape, 7 years in jail. He came out in 2018 and we had another bid to deport him and that failed. We await to get rid of this guy. He's still in this country. 54 offences, 7 years inside for rape, and we can't deport him. While he's awaiting his second decision for deportation, quite why there should be any deliberation or delays is beyond me. He should be out, gone, obviously, but he's waiting for this decision. And since 2018, he's been required to wear a tag. This was a terrible imposition on him, apparently. It made him physically and mentally distressed, and he suffered from depression. A judge has ruled in favour of his claim for compensation for that. In fairness, it was after the judge ruled in favour, only after that, that this guy Taskiran admitted to rape. So the judge did sort of say compensation before that. But if you look back on his history, 54 offences, 7 years in jail, and so on and so forth, you know, what is he still doing here? And are we really, really going to pay this guy compensation because putting a tag on him made him a bit depressed? This is, you know, ground zero of mad modern Britain, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'd just like to say we can deport him. Therefore, we are choosing not to. Okay, so the first deportation, we could have deported him. We are choosing not to. They hide and they make the law the sort of the excuse for all of this. Politicians can draft the laws so that we can deport people. It's very simple. I could do it for them if they want to. You know, I'll help them out. Even if this Labour government wants help, I'll draft them to make sure that you can deport people instantly. We are choosing to live this way, Kev. This is a public choice by our elites who want to pat themselves on the back, feel morally superior to the rest of us, and who's at risk? Oh, it's us, not them. I mean, how on earth that poor lady who was raped, I mean, my absolute heart breaks for her. You know, that we failed to deport a criminal and an innocent is raped, and that is not really the country I want to live in. Our government is appalling now, and I think we need to start calling both for the politicians and all of the civil servants to go, because they clearly don't know what they're doing. And if they can't manage to write the system and create the system of laws to a point where we can deport somebody who's obviously this vile to Turkey, which is a major UK holiday destination, I mean, that's just absurd. Yeah. You know, there comes a day when push comes to shove, and I think it's coming, Kev, because I just think we just can't have this anymore. Yeah. You know, what if this was somebody's sister? This will have been somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, maybe somebody's mum. I don't know. They're outrageous that she was raped. This isn't, and we need to stop tutting and rolling our eyes and just going that this is not on.
Yeah, exactly right. Because we allowed this guy to stay, a British woman was raped. You know, and Mr. Justice Lavender is the High Court judge who ruled that Taskiran should be given, and I quote, appropriate relief for the, and again I quote, intense physical and mental distress that the tag caused him. It plunged him into depression, apparently. Now, in fairness to Mr. Justice Lavender, when he made that ruling, it was only when Taskiran had been charged with rape. Subsequent to that ruling, Taskiran confessed to the rape. But that said, Mr. Justice Lavender was aware that he'd committed 54 offences since being allowed to stay in this country. Serious offences. What on earth was he doing saying, let's give this guy compensation? What goes on in these judges' heads?
Well, I can't talk to the specifics of this case because I haven't read it and I haven't got the judgment. But I will flag up that there is a single problem with our judiciary, which is that we are asking them both at appointment stage and at promotion stage to demonstrate a commitment to equality and diversity and inclusion. And the minute you do that, you have politicized your judges and you've politicized them in wokery. But I think all politicization is wrong. If we politicized our judges to the right wing, I wouldn't be happy, Kev. I want impartial judges. And I just flag that the nation needs to pay attention to its judges, because if the judges are doing odd things, they're either doing it because they've gone mad, but then if they keep happening, it can't just be that they're all mad. They're not all going to be bonkers. And so if instead the judges are persistently doing odd and inexplicable things, I can tell you right now that with any human being, it will be because it is in their self-interest so to do. That is how most humans are. And so what we need to do is design a system where the self-interests of all of our judges is towards impartiality and not doing obviously stupid things like this. If he gets compensation, I'll go through the detail and I'll be livid about it too. But I think the major thing is that an innocent woman was raped because the British state is spineless, pathetic and weak.
And this man still has not been deported. It's extraordinary. Do you think, without sort of especially citing this case, well, in a way citing this case, if this guy, this rapist, who said that the tag has made him depressed and claimed compensation, if he was a sort of white working class British bloke, do you think the judge would be less inclined to say he deserves compensation?
I think that's the line we need to pursue and explore and understand if we are to ever to get back to the proper rule of law, which is not to have two-tier justice. But there is a reason that the statue on top of the Old Bailey wears a blindfold. You know, that justice needs to be blind again. She needs to not take any of these matters into account. Look at the logic of it, Kevin. I mean, Axel Rudiker-Barner is an absolute monster and is currently incarcerated. What if he starts to argue that being in a prison cell is making him depressed? We're going to give him money too.
Oh, they'll probably let him out.
Well, this is just absurd. This is just, you cannot be this pathetic, spineless and weak forever. And eventually we need to step up. I've got this thing called how many times can you hit a man in Waitrose with your trolley before you die? And a friend of mine calls that concept the exploding doormat, which is what she sees. She's Australian, so she sees all of us English people as that we are basically exploding doormats. We get walked on and walked on and walked on and walked on and walked on. Then we explode and the person who's walking on us dies and they don't understand what just happened to them. And I really suggest we are at that point. This is not on.
I just think that middle-class wokery has become a sickness in this nation. You know, we're all terrified of being called racist or Islamophobic, and that has made us terrified, scared of our own shadows. We have a judiciary making ridiculous decisions, particularly immigration judges, whose decisions are just, you know, beggar belief, to be honest with you. You know, oh, this guy's just done 4 years in jail for child sex abuse. He's a paedophile, very serious paedophile, but he can stay because he's got a right to a family life. Or he can stay because back home in his country, they persecute paedophiles. They take a dim view of paedophilia in Syria or wherever. And it's like, you always want to say, yeah, well, we're not that keen on it here in Britain either. So some of the decisions coming out of our judiciary are, you know, they're an insult to common sense. They really, really are. You know, if this guy gets compensation for being depressed because we gave him a electronic tag, then, you know, I think it is time to all cash in our chips, get on the plane and leave this country forever, because it is going corporately insane. This nonsense has got to stop. Let me know what you think, folks. 0344 499 1000. Are we really going to pay a Turkish rapist compensation because we put an electronic tag on him and that made him depressed? Are we really going to do that? Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, Stephen, we'll talk about Keir Starmer who is vowing to lead us into the next election. Well, he better hope the next election is, you know, December the 2nd or something, because I don't think he's going to make it to 2029. We'll talk about Keir's woes next. Welcome back. Breaking news, potentially very bad news for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, maybe bad news for Bill Clinton, maybe bad news for all sorts of rich and powerful men. Let's see. But the Congress, the House of Representatives in Washington, the American government has voted to compel the government to release all of the Epstein files. This was something that Donald Trump has been railing against, but has dramatically changed his mind in the last couple of days. So all of the Epstein files, which have been dripped out bit by bit by bit over the past painful year or so, will now be released at once. God knows what lurks in those files, but it could be dreadful news for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We'll have to see if we can take another name off him. You know, we can't strip him of anything else, so we'll now call him Andy Wins or something like that. You know, to keep cutting his name back till in the end he's just called And. And lives in a tent somewhere. But seriously, it could be very bad news for him. It could be bad news for Bill Clinton. This allegedly will finally reveal the full truth, the whole truth about what went on in the evil web spun by convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and what went on that hellish pedo island of his down in the Caribbean, and on his private jet they called the Lolita Express. Lots of young women being defiled by old, rich and powerful men. Lovely story, isn't it? But yes, so all those files will now be released. Major story in America. Let's go back to domestic affairs, and let's talk still to barrister and broadcaster Steven Barrett. Yeah, Steven, politically, Keir Starmer, very strange, I thought. So we have this big announcement by Shabana Mahmood, tough talking, hard as nails, the Terminator Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, who's not going to solve anything, but she pretended. But anyway, it should have been her day, you know, and to a large extent it sort of was. But suddenly, pick up the Daily Mirror today, all over the front page, Keir Starmer, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to fight the next election, stealing a march on his Home Secretary to announce that he fully intends to leave Labour into the next election. Well, good luck with that, mate. I mean, a lot of people think he won't make Christmas. I think he will. I think he'll go after the May elections. But he's got about as much chance of leading Labour into the next election in 2029 as I have. It's ridiculous.
I think you're just such a crushing optimist, Kev. I genuinely think that the budget next week is going to have huge ramifications. I think almost certainly Rachel won't survive it. And if Rachel goes, then I think Keir goes. And I think it should be that simple. He's got no divine right to rule us. He didn't take my constitutional advice, and they sort of mocked me and were a bit rude when they got in. But they have record low levels of the vote. That means that you're a pretty illegitimate government. And the comparative government in modern times is the Cameron coalition. Again, which it's just a low legitimacy government. When you're a coalition, it's sort of obvious to you because you can't actually form a government on your own. Right. But Labour was able to form a government, but with a majority that was an ocean wide and puddle thin. And they should have been much more cautious on their policy platform. They should have been aware that there is this constitutional concept called legitimacy, which he's just run through. I mean, what legitimacy does he have to secretly push for mass state killing? What legitimacy does he have to have abortion up until birth? What legitimacy does he have to give away and pay to give away our Chagos Islands while betraying the Chagos Islanders? He's doing all of these terribly dramatic things that actually a government that had a high level of legitimacy, so that received way more of the popular vote than he received. Remember, he actually received fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn in the preceding election, which Jeremy Corbyn lost. Yeah. So, you know, he was doing things that are so dramatic that I think they would shake a high legitimacy government, and he's doing it from the absolute position of total weakness. You know, he obviously thinks he's God's gift to something, and the rest of us are just going, no, mate, you're just awful. You're weak, you're pathetic. Free the sausages. You know, this is just...
But it's obviously so desperate, though, that, you know, while Shabana Mahmood's unveiling, you know, ostensibly a very important series of proposals about the migrant crisis. I mean, I don't think they're any good, but it is an important initiative in terms of the government. So it's important for the government. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister hogs the front page of the Mirror to say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to lead Labour into the next election. That is the move of an extremely desperate, extremely worried, extremely weak Prime Minister.
Yes, well, I'm afraid I may have mildly teased him because I may have put out a tweet saying that it was the kiss of death because Keir Starmer has full confidence in Keir Starmer.
In himself. Yeah, you know what? Nobody wants Starmer's confidence.
No, please don't have full confidence in me.
Ask Angela Rayner, ask Peter Mandelson. I think Morgan McSweeney's going to find out that Keir Starmer's vote of confidence means you're getting the sack fairly soon. And you're right, he's given himself a full vote of confidence. He'll be the latest victim of the Starmer curse of confidence, won't he?
Yes, he will. And I really do think we need to pay attention to the budget. I think because they've been leaking like a sieve. Even the Common Speaker, who's, let's face it, not a terribly proactive Common Speaker in terms of defending the House, got a bit rattled that she keeps briefing things about the budget to the press, which you're not supposed to do because the budget, changes the economy and could give people commercial advantage. So you do it all in one go in the House of Commons. That's why we have this tradition, so that everybody finds out at the fair time, in a fair way at the same time. But you know, this budget is the things that she's leaked have already hurt the economy. The minute I can tell you right now, knowing the world of high net worth individuals that I do, the minute that she floated an exit tax, half of the people who were sat there going, maybe I won't leave when
well, that's it. Yeah, straw that breaks the camel's back. I'm off now. I mean, that's it. This budget, although she's railed back on the income tax, I mean, it might have been better. I mean, I'm not a fan of putting income tax up, obviously, and that would be an egregious breaking of their manifesto pledge, but it might have been for the best, because what she's going to bring in now is a kind of mosaic, a smorgasbord of tiny taxes that are bound to be very complicated, may well not work very well, and will alienate vast sections of the country. So her replacement for a single simple income tax rise is a mosaic of mess.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why, you know, we're actually past peak taxation, as in we have taxes so high that they actually hurt the amount of tax money we raise. There is a sort of sweet spot for taxation, and it's lower than where we are now. So if we raise taxes again, we're going to raise even less money in tax. That's simply what happens. Humans are a very predictable species. The Laffer curve is a real thing, and sensible people, including Tony Blair, govern on the basis of it. You know, sensible Labour Party would govern on the basis of the Laffer curve. It's just human nature. There's no reason to pretend it doesn't exist. But this Labour Party wants to pretend it doesn't exist. It has no money. It has a declining tax base. Everything it's saying is hurting the economy. She's destroyed jobs. She's destroyed private sector employment. She's scared off wealthy people. We've had a massive dump of stocks recently. That was reported today. Stocks and shares. And I know people are just dumping stuff because they don't want to be holding UK assets when the things hit the fan. And I really think people just need to pay way more attention to next Wednesday. I think it's going to be. I don't know why I sound gleeful, because it's almost like it's just the country's just going to go boom. Well, but I do think it'll be the end of him.
So you genuinely think that? I mean, he's been using Rachel from Accounts for some time as like a human shield. Don't blame me. Look, the Chancellor's going to make another announcement you're going to hate. Now, all of the Chancellor's announcements for the last 3-4 months have not really been hers. I mean, this isn't really her budget, it's Keir Starmer's. And his his ongoing bid to use her as a protective shield, don't blame me, blame that woman who's messing up the economy. That is going to end come the budget. So you think that will mean the axe will fall for her and by extension him. I mean, I suspect that what might happen as his last desperate move, he'll replace her and say, stick with me, but you reckon they'll both have to go?
Well, the markets won't rally, is my take, Kev. That's my personal private view, and I'm not even an expert in these matters. So, bear in mind when people hear it. But I personally think that he will not survive the loss of his chancellor. It's not my fault, Gov. It's the point of that woman that I was so excited and appointed and made her chancellor, and we've only been in office for 15, 16 months, however many it is, and I've backed her all the way. No, it's just not gonna fly. So I really think this budget is absolute calamity time, and I sort of think they hope that something dramatic will happen to stop us paying any attention to it. But it's just the markets are going to have a field day, and very sadly, people's lives are going to be destroyed. People will lose employment. People will lose businesses. This is the natural consequence of governing badly. But I think somehow, Kev, a generation needs to see the natural consequences of governing badly before they learn the importance of governing well again. I mean, I'm very lucky in a way in that I didn't sort of know the terrors of the 70s and the real badness of it. But I had a pretty rough life in the 80s that got progressively better because we were well governed. And then we got to the 90s and things are really great because we've been well governed. And, I've been watching us sort of tread water throughout the noughties and then decline ever since the financial crash. And I think a whole generation needs to know that governance is a real thing. It does matter whether we know where immigrants are or aren't. It does matter whether we don't. It turns out that when people leave this country, we don't know where they go. So it's just a basic governance.
And you need the markets need to have faith in the Chancellor. And they've lost complete faith in her, which is why I think you're right. Her days must be numbered, because the government can't function if the city and the markets don't trust its Chancellor. And they have lost all faith in Rachel Reeves, particularly when she primed them. She softened the way and said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be raising income tax. And they all went, fair enough, decent idea, only thing you can do. And then she suddenly said, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to be doing that, because Keir made her say that. At that point, the markets lost all faith in her. And if you have a chancellor that the markets don't listen to, don't trust, don't care about, then your government ceases to function. So fascinating times. I think we might be on the precipice. I think you're right, Stephen. Stephen, fantastic to talk to you as always. That was Steven Barrett, barrister and broadcaster.